Welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Matt Baer. I'm the founder of Q4Launch, which is a fancy way of saying that I pay the bills and sweep the floors. I'm glad that y'all are along with us today and tuned in for our marketing roundtable. Pretty pumped for today, to be honest. It's a new kind of concept for us. We've had we love the feedback y'all give us on our webinars. If this is your first time with us, welcome. We host a webinar about every week, or that's our goal for this year. We've been hitting that about the last 6 months. And we've been getting a lot of feedback and kind of requests for this style of webinar. So we were excited to be able to bring it to you today. I'm excited to be doing this with Stephen Wright as well. He's on the webinar with us as well. Stephen is our Director of New Customer Relationships. So Stephen has done basically every job at Q4Launch. Good friend of mine, and I know many of you know him from the times he's had many of the multiple roles here, and y'all have worked with him on a lot of things if you're our customers. If you haven't, hopefully you've tuned into one of his webinars in the past as well. So glad he's here along with us. So you've got both of us here today to answer your questions, which is just a safety net, really. So if one of us doesn't know the answer, then the other can cover for him. Just kidding a little bit, but that's kind of true, actually. Excited both of us are here, excited you're here, and going to dive into many of the questions that we've had asked. Tons of questions came in. We did our best to filter through them. A lot of them were really close to each other, so we tried to kind of combine a couple here and there, so you may not hear your question word for word as you asked it, or you may, but we're going to answer as many as we can. So a little bit of housekeeping before we dive into our questions. We are recording today's webinar, so we will be sending it out after the recording. So look for that in your email inbox. We will also have an additional Q&A time at the end of the webinar. So if we answer a question, which then creates another question, which happens a lot, use the chat panel. Drop that in there, and Stephen and I will answer those at the end of our time together today. Or if you have a question that you didn't get the chance to submit, or you forgot to submit, or you thought of it just as you logged on, use the chat panel for that as well. And after we get through these first questions, we'll connect with the chat panel and get as many of those questions answered as we can. Awesome. So hopefully we are ready to go here and are going to dive straight into things. We're going to start our time off together today by giving you a little bit of insight into who we are, what we do, and how we do things, or really what makes us tick, I guess, more than anything. But yes, let me say that. Thank you for submitting the content for today's webinar. We couldn't have done this webinar without you, because you all submitted a ton of questions. So thank you for that. We appreciate that and the content you all have provided to make today a reality. So as we get started, we wanted you all to get to know Stephen and I a little bit, have a little bit of lighter side of things. So we're going to answer a few of these questions for you as we kind of get going, so you can get to know us a little bit as well. So Stephen, I'm going to let you kind of kick off this first one here. What is your favorite U.S. city?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know who came up with that question, but I'm glad to answer it. And I would say then this might be a little bit unfair since I'm so familiar with it, but Charleston, South Carolina is hands down one of my favorite cities, and especially to live in. It's a great town. I don't know who has been and who hasn't been. Highly recommend it. And if you need any suggestions, I just planned out an entire vacation for some friends of mine who are getting ready to go there, and showed them and talked to them about all the spots they need to hit. So Charleston is probably my favorite. If I had to pick a tie for second, I'd go somewhere either San Diego or Monterey, California, or probably anywhere on the California coast, but those are the two that are my favorites, and you can see there's a theme to the ones I like the most, being on the water, and on the coast you get a little bit of the mountains too, so a little bit of best of both worlds out there.
Awesome. Thanks. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's good, since that's where our company's headquartered. Not to be a sucker, but my favorite probably is also Charleston. I mean, I did choose to live here and start a company here, so that's pretty obvious. But not to be redundant, I would say probably second to that, one of my new favorite cities is Austin. I was just in Austin earlier this year speaking at a conference, and while it's not quite the same as on the water, it's such a cool city and so much going on there. So that would probably be one of my new favorite cities in the U.S. favorite countries, we're going to touch on that real quick as well. We get asked a lot of these types of questions as we travel and speak because we're in the travel space. My favorite country, I'll take the lead on this one, is New Zealand. Well, besides the United States, right? I mean, I'm going to let my patriotic and run for president speech go aside here about us needing to be the best country in the world, and I'll let Donald Trump say all that "Make America Great Again" stuff. But when I run for president, I'll give you that speech then. Till then, I would say it's probably New Zealand. My wife and I, with some good friends, had a chance to spend about 2.5 weeks in New Zealand last year. And I'm an adventure junkie. If y'all have been on our webinars before, y'all probably know that about me. So we went because New Zealand is the adventure capital of the world. And it definitely lived up to its expectations. So that would be my favorite country.
Yeah, and Matt kind of kicked it off here with a little bit of politics going on here, getting ready to give his presidential speech later, and I promise my answer has literally nothing to do with politics, although it's been in the news lately. But I was lucky enough to go to Cuba for about 8 days, about 2 or 3 years ago. It's a beautiful place. Probably the most beautiful beach I've ever been to was in a town called Varadero, a little bit, I guess that would have been east of Havana. And the food was absolutely amazing. Probably the best food I've had for a solid week that I can ever remember. So that was great. And then yeah, I've gotten to see a lot, but that's probably one of the favorites that I've been to so far.
And Steven, how about that? The next trip you want to take, what do you think? What's on the list?
Well, my wife and I have a few things lined up already. I have a sister in Alaska. We're going to go up there later this summer. We may or may not go to Nicaragua here later in the summer as well. But so those are already planned. If I'm planning my next trip that I want to take, we also have some friends, some dear friends to us who are in our wedding. They're living in Italy, down along the Amalfi Coast, which by all accounts is one of the most beautiful places in the world. So we're looking forward to that. Probably looking summer 2017, maybe spring 2017 to take a trip to Salerno, Italy is the exact town that they're living in. So that's probably tops on my list. How about you?
For me, it's going to be Costa Rica. I've been before, and it is on one of my top favorite places in the world, and I want to go back with like a big group of friends and rent a huge beach house and do some crazy adventures for a week. So, and I joke with our staff that if things ever get too crazy here politically, we're going to move the whole company to Costa Rica, and I'll just travel back and forth to speak at all these conferences. So it's such a great place, and I would love to go back. And plan to. We're planning probably in the fall or winter to take a trip down there and do that. Take 8-10 people down and do that and help them experience that country too and that culture. So awesome. Well, thanks y'all for throwing those in. We don't always get the chance to get real personal on that, but I'm glad that glad some people threw those questions in there to get to know us a little bit better. So as we do that, we're going to kind of start sliding in here to our marketing content for today. I think most of the rest of the questions we're going to go over are much more tied into marketing, but glad you all got a chance to get a little insight to who we are and what makes us tick too, and why we chose the travel industry to be where we started our company and really specialize in the space. And it's because of that passion we have for travel. To get to love to do what you do every day is such a blessing, and we're so thankful for that. And it stems out of the answers you just heard from a lot of those places we love to go. All right, so let's start off with this one. Steven, I'm going to throw this one over to you. How should a company choose the right keywords for PPC? So if you don't know what that is, I know Steven does, but if everybody else doesn't know what that is, that's pay-per-click advertising or Google AdWords is what we're talking about. And should they manage PPC in-house or hire a company? Steven, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that comes up a lot. We don't get it a ton for pay-per-click, honestly, but it works the same way for pay-per-click as it would for, as you're building keywords for a blog, or just what keywords do you need your site to be ranking for. And the number one tool, and where we start our process with that, is Google AdWords, and it's in Google AdWords, and it's called the Keyword Planner. Don't be shocked by that. A lot of people come to me and will say, well, I don't have an AdWords account. I don't want to pay for one. I'm here to tell you you don't have to. I set up my own account probably 2 years ago, and I've never paid a dime for pay-per-click. You just have to fill out the information. You do put maybe a credit card number in there, but again, I've never been charged. So they just need you to have that information before they'll let you use the tool. So highly recommend using the Google Keyword Planner. It will give you an idea of exactly how many people a month are searching for a particular word. When you're looking in terms of pay-per-click, it'll also show you a suggested bid. It'll show you a competition score level and ranging from low, medium, or high for whatever that's worth. But that is the best tool that you can use for that. Onto that second part of the question, should you manage it in-house, hire a company? And I think it really depends on two things in my mind. One, the first question I would ask you would be, do you or anybody on your staff have the expertise to manage that well so that you're going to get people to your website, and is it going to provide a return for you? That might be the biggest question is, if you have somebody on staff who's an all-star at pay-per-click, then great, then utilize that skill set. And if not, then consider, hiring somebody, outsourcing that to somebody who does have that skill set that might not be on your internal staff. The second part of that would be the time aspect, right? So maybe you do have somebody on your staff who does have a good handle for pay-per-click, looking up the right keywords, and could probably do a pretty good job for you. But then the second part of that equation is, do they have the time to do it with all of the other duties that they are assigned to get done? So two biggest things there. Again, anybody on your staff have the expertise? Does anybody on your staff who has that expertise have the time to do it? If the answer to either of those questions is no, then definitely would recommend finding a company who can help you with that. So.
Yeah, great answer, Stephen. I would add a third point to that, and I would and that'd be budget. Depending on what your PPC budget is going to be, is going to factor into that as well. If you're just wanting to spend a minimal amount of money, and when I say that, it's different for everybody, but $100 a month, maybe $200 a month, and that's just what you've got budgeted, and you can put towards pay-per-click, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's probably a low enough number. You need to manage that in-house, because most companies are going to charge a minimum of $100 a month just to manage it. So if you're spending $100 to manage it and your budget is $100, it just that doesn't add up for me. I talked to somebody once that was spending $100 on pay-per-click, but they were paying a company $500 to manage it. And I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, that just doesn't work for me, numbers-wise. So I would say if your budget should be a part of that as well. If you just want to spend $100 a month, that's something you can probably get in there. You can set it up, and you can kind of let it run. You don't need to constantly tweak it. If you're going to spend $500, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000 dollars a month on pay-per-click, and there's people on this call that are probably in all those ranges, because we talk to people in all those ranges, then you probably want to consider working with somebody that does that for a living, because it can be very complex, and small changes when you have a large budget can be huge, and the return on those changes can pay for the company what they charge over and over again. So definitely factor budget into that as well as you're thinking through it. All right, let's keep moving. We're going to try to keep all our answers to about 3 minutes, just because we've got so many questions from y'all. So I'm going to field this one. Are videos the next big thing for brand websites? And if anybody doesn't know what they mean there with that question, brand websites, it's the yourwebsite.com or yourdomainname.com. And I don't know if they're the next big thing, but I would say they're definitely a big thing. I'm a huge fan of great quality video. And one of the exciting parts of great quality video is that the production costs are coming down a lot in recent years. So it used to be, it would be $10,000, $25,000 to get a really great production quality video. Whereas now, and there's price ranges all over the place from $500 to $5,000, but you can get a really good video within that range. And one of the things I'm really a fan of, just because it's kind of new and cool and techy, and I think captures a lot of people's attention, is drone videos. We're seeing more and more of them pop up, but in the travel space, it's such a cool opportunity to show off not only your property and the grounds that surround it or your properties, but also just your destination. I mean, if you've been with us before, you've heard us talk about it's not about just marketing your property. It's about marketing your destination as a whole, because people don't book a vacation because they want to sleep in your bed. Like, that's not the main point of their vacation. They book it because they want to experience your destination, and they want to have a great place to stay while they're there. So as such, you've got to be marketing that destination, and I think video does a phenomenal job of helping tell that story of your destination. And you know, if resources were unlimited, I would hire a whole video staff, and I'd send them to every one of our customers just to get video. But the travel piece gets really expensive when you're doing it. But I do think it's an important thing if you have the budget for it, and can do a great job of differentiating you away from some of your competitors. I do think some of the videos we're seeing used on like home pages, like Airbnb, for example, if you go to their homepage, they just load up kind of some of these little quick videos that play through. I think that's probably more of a fad. I don't think that actually drives conversion. It's cool, but it's, you know, one of those features that's, wow, that's cool, but it doesn't really drive conversion, in my opinion. Now, I haven't studied that, so data may tell me otherwise, and y'all know how data-driven we are, so I'm not going to make a claim, but big picture, that's what I would say. That might be a little bit of a fad, but big picture-wise, video is absolutely powerful, and there's no better way to tell the story of your property, your destination, than by doing it with video. So if you have the budget for it, definitely encourage you to allocate some marketing budget to that. But make sure you have great photography first and foremost. If you don't already have great photography, I wouldn't take the time and money to spend on video yet. Photography would come first, and then video would come after that. So hopefully that helps. That's kind of our thoughts on video, and there's some cool ways you can do some things with video that's less expensive too, more like slideshows, sets of music, which is kind of old school, but if you do it right, it can still kind of come off well. So great question, though. Appreciate that. All right, sliding on to number 3 here. How successful is remarketing for the hotel industry, and is it worth $10,000 annually? We got a lot of these really specific scenario type of questions. Some of them we edited to kind of reduce the specificity. Wow, I'm impressed that I actually pronounced that word right, although maybe I didn't. I don't know. But it's the real answer here to this question becomes a question of analytics and tracking, right? I would say the answer to the first part of the question is yes, remarketing can be successful for the hotel industry, for the lodging industry, travel, any industry really. It can be successful. But then to answer the second part of that question of is it worth X, right? So fill in your own number there. Is it worth whatever you're spending on it or not spending on it? That's really an analytics question. And you've got to be tracking that via your analytics and via e-commerce tracking and ideally phone call tracking if you're spending, you know, a good bit of money on it to really understand if it's worth it. And that's where we would go back and we would look at the analytics and see what kind of conversion do we have on that money that we're spending. If I'm spending $10,000 annually on remarketing, which to clarify, remarketing is a part of pay-per-click typically, what's my return on that? Like, can I track that? Can I prove that? And am I comfortable with that? Like, am I getting the return that I want to see? So I can't matter of factly tell you whether or not it's worth $10,000. If that $10,000 is creating $50,000 in bookings, then I'd say, yeah, that may be worth it. If that $10,000 is creating $10,000 in bookings, then no, it's not worth it. So you really got to connect that to your analytics, which is so true across everything. From a strategy perspective, you've got to connect it back to analytics and e-commerce tracking and ultimately revenue tracking to understand what kind of revenue you're getting from that. So hopefully that's helpful for you, and hopefully if you're wondering the same thing, you can apply that same methodology into whatever it is you're thinking about as you're kind of analyzing your marketing spend and so forth. And that would apply across pay-per-click, not just the remarketing part of pay-per-click. Cool. Moving right along here. What is the best time of day and day of the week to send out newsletters to your email marketing database? Just a quick insight. We send over 1 million emails a month as a company, and we analyze all that data. And Steven actually leads a lot of those efforts for us, or has in the past at different times, and still works closely with a lot of that. So I'm going to kick that one over to Steven and kind of let him share some of the things that we've seen from our email marketing.
Yeah, the most honest answer I can give to that in terms of best time of day, best day of the week, we can also, you know, you could add subject lines and all sorts of things in there. But really it's going to vary from list to list. Like Matt said, we're sending about 1 million emails a month for customers all over the country and even outside the country. And the truth is that the list for our customer that's on the California coast versus the list for our customer in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, they respond to things differently. So before I give kind of a broad general sweeping answer in terms of averages, I would say you need to start determining that for your own list by doing a series of A/B tests to see, what time of day is best for your list, what type of subject line is best for your list, and what type of content within your email is best for your list. And that's all things that you can do, provided that you're using a quality email marketing software for your email marketing efforts. But the general answer that we can give, and kind of where we start before we start testing anything specifically for our list, is that weekdays, in terms of day of the week, weekdays tend to perform better than weekends. Doing some research, and MailChimp is a good source of research as well. They're one of the big email marketing softwares, and they update their numbers on a monthly basis. So looking at their numbers, what we see is that any given day during the week, so Monday through Friday, you're not going to see more than 2 percentage point difference between any of those days. You see a pretty significant drop-off for Saturday and Sunday, but in terms of the weekdays, you're not going to see a huge difference. We're talking literally less than 2 percentage points difference between Thursday, which is technically the highest and best day to send during the week, and Friday, which would be the lowest. But again, if you send on, I'd rather send on a Friday than on a Saturday or Sunday, and you're still going to see pretty good results from that. So generally speaking, try sending during the week, and if you want to pick a day to start with to see if it works for your list, I'd pick Thursday. The next part of that question too is about time of the day, and very similar to there not being a large gap between, is Thursday better than Friday? We don't see much of a difference between 7:30 a.m. and 9 p.m. So that's what, 13 and a half hours of time that you have this window of time where you can really test around, and you're going to see pretty good results in. Again, though, you're going to need to test that for your specific list. And one thing to keep in mind too is that there are probably people in different time zones on your list than where you are located. So that time zone, that 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. time zone, is taking into consideration where the recipient is when they get that email. So if you're on the East Coast, but all of your database is on the West Coast, you need to keep that in mind as a kind of an extreme example. But again, that range is really wide. The peak time in that range was 10:30 a.m. So if I were to start out and try an email and hope it works as best as it can, Thursday at 10:30 a.m. would be a good place to start. But I would definitely test that again to other days of the week, other times of the day, and then see how your list responds. Again, it's going to be about knowing your list and giving them the information they want when they want it, more so than adhering to any sort of industry standard that might not be applicable specifically to you and your guests.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for sharing that insight. Next question here is about social media. Our Facebook following is hovering around 500 fans, and we don't receive new fans that often. What are some strategies that you use to increase your presence on social media? Great question. Yeah, we have a tremendous track record of growing our customer social media presences. Typically, a customer in their first year would see a list like 500 go to about 2,000 in the first year. So we've really put a lot of time and energy into this, and we're constantly looking for other ways. So excited to share some of that with you today. One of the most simple, honestly, and I know a lot of us are probably already doing this, but one of the most simple is to just include that in a checkout email and just say, hey, we hope you had a great stay. Check us out on social media to stay in touch with us. Just make sure that you're actually updating that regularly if you're going to encourage people to go there. Kind of on the flip side of that, but similar, is in your welcome email. If you do a welcome email with information about their upcoming stay, being able to tell them to check out your social media presence for discounts for other local businesses or great ideas on things to do in the area or things like that. Like, the majority of the vacation process is spent in the planning process. So if you get out ahead of that and tell them to like you on Facebook before they even come visit you while they're still in the planning phase, and you share content on your social media page that's helpful for them while in the planning stage, can really be a great source of information for them. So that's a couple ways, that welcome email, or even further ahead of that, maybe like a booking confirmation email. Great way to do that. That checkout email is a great way to do that. Some other really cool stuff you can do is just have things that engage your guests with social media around your properties or whatever. Being able to kind of have that content around, whether it is a, kind of a cut-out picture frame, which you might have seen those around. Basically, it's made to look like the Instagram picture, and you just hold it up, and it's like a cardboard frame that's designed to look like an Instagram post, and they can take a picture inside of it, and it can have your branding on it. Little ways like that for people to engage with you on social media while they're at your destination, right? Being able to really do that at your destination is a cool thing. You can build other ways to do that too. I mean, scavenger hunts, you could do like a scavenger hunt that they have to complete via social media. And they maybe do a photo scavenger hunt, and they take pictures at all these different destinations that they're visiting around your town. So you're doing a couple things there. One, you're giving somebody an activity to do, which people love that. People love activities to do because they're always wondering, what am I going to do now that I'm spending all this time in this place, and I've got all this free time I never have. So that's a cool thing. And then they tag you in those pictures so that they show up on your stuff as well, and you connect that with a cool prize, whether that's, a bottle of wine or whatever. I mean, you make it appropriate, or a free branded T-shirt or hat or whatever. Like, to have some cool prize so there's some incentive at the end, but really walk them through that. So that's a really cool thing to do as well. Create that kind of social media scavenger hunt where they go out and take those pictures, which will hopefully get your brand out to all their friends as well. If they're doing that, and like, wow, that looks like so much fun. Those people are running around St. Augustine, Florida, taking all these pictures, and they keep all your branding is involved in all that, which gets your brand exposed to their friends. So that's a cool way. All those are a little bit more work, of course. The simplest, well, maybe the simplest, maybe the hardest, I don't know, but it's just having engaging content as well. I mean, so many social media pages don't do a very good job of engaging people. The more engaged your following is, the more it's going to organically grow. So make sure your content's good as well. And then finally, you can use ads. I mean, you can use ads to target specific groups of people. The Facebook targeting within their ad function is really, really good to be able to target specific groups of people that you want to get your business in front of. So targeting your target customer, right? Knowing exactly who you're going after, and targeting those people to get your brand in front of them and make sure that they know you exist. That's a great way to expose your brand to people who may not otherwise know you exist, and be able to start growing your following. So those are a few quick tips there. Hopefully at least one of those will jump out at you and be something you can apply into your business. Another question here, this is one I wish I could go deep on, but just for time I can't go too deep. We know millennials are important, but we don't want many staying in our properties. What would you do to market to families, which is our target market? It's so important to know your target market and stay true to that, but you all know we try to break a lot of myths when we're doing webinars and blow a lot of things up. And that's one I would blow up. I mean, if you're going to say millennials are important, but you don't want them staying at your properties, I would hold the phone right there. Let's challenge the status quo on that and really dive into why we don't want them staying at our properties. If it's because one time some millennials went on a drunken bender and damaged your property or whatever, don't punish an entire demographic because of what one did. There's a lot of stories in history about that, and other things we won't get into. But this is a great population. They're spending a lot of money on travel, so I wouldn't write off the whole group. Maybe because you had a bad experience. Obviously, I don't know what's leading to that policy, but I know a lot of people have that, and they don't want millennials at their properties. So I would challenge that status quo right away. But then moving forward, what would you do to target families? It's creating the content. Honestly, it's marketing 101. It's creating content consistently that speaks the language and speaks the message of your target customer. So I would really go through your entire marketing process from top to bottom and say, how well am I doing at targeting families? From the language you use, to the photos you use, to the colors you're choosing, to the messaging you're sending, to the way you're communicating it, all of that plays into how you're targeting families. It's not like I can put my finger on and say, hey, there's this one website you need to advertise on to target families. But really just looking at your marketing across the board and honing in on who you want that to be, and communicating to that group of people through everything you're doing. Everything needs to go through that lens if that's the group you're going to go after. But you also have to understand the flip side of that. You go deep down that rabbit hole, you're going to do a great job marketing to families, but you're going to isolate some other people. So you've got to balance those things and think if that's really what you want to do. But good question. Hopefully that challenged some of the way people think about some things, but hopefully it was helpful for you as well if you won't get over that millennial hump of hating them. Or not hating them, I shouldn't have said that. but not wanting them to stay at your properties. Another question here, I'm going to field this one. We have a seasonal business that competes against large resort hotels. How can we better attract 2 to 4 people groups and still be cost effective to our owners? There's a lot wrapped into that question to really be able to answer it effectively. So that's one, I'd really recommend if that's your question, maybe getting in touch and we can have a deeper conversation about that. But I think it's really, again, it's going to go back to marketing, right? That's what we're talking about when we're talking about attracting people, but is building the type of content that will attract those 2 to 4 people groups. So really understand, if that's your target, what are those people coming for? What's bringing those people to your destination? And creating marketing, creating packages, creating blogs, creating email campaigns, telling that story via social media around the things that are attracting those people to your area. If you have multiple large resort hotels in your destination, chances are there is a ton of business coming to your destination. So that's good, right? You've got a property or a company in a hot destination. Humongous opportunity to benefit from that. You just got to decide how big of a company you have or want to have and figure out how to attract that number of guests from your overall marketing picture. So looking at ways to interact with, engage with, get in the path of those people when they're in that planning process of their vacation. So great quality content is going to be a big part of that. Understanding what's bringing people to the area, what are your past guests coming for, and how do you attract more of those, and understanding what their search process looks like. How are they searching for a destination? And putting yourself in that path so when they're doing that, you can be found by these people. If you don't have a marketing strategy that's increasing traffic to your website, you're not going to grow your business, because that's the start of getting found. People have to be able to discover your website, and then your website has to be great to get them to convert and want to come stay with you. So you've got to get found in the first place. That's really where I would focus, is you're building a strategy to get found. Man, these are deep questions, Stephen. We need like 2 hours to go through all this, but we're going to make it work. Question number 8, Stephen, I'm going to throw this one your way. About how many hours per week does the average B&B operator spend on blogging and social media?
Yeah, I'm gonna take this and I'm going to break it up into how many hours a week are they spending on this and how many hours a week they probably should be spending on it. It's really 2 different questions, and we're lucky enough that we get to do a lot of these marketing graders and consultations that people ask for, several times a week. So, we're privy to a lot of information that that people aren't thinking about, because they're not on tons of B&B or inn or hotel websites all the time like we are. But in that, I would say that when we look at just the blogging picture, I would say that maybe 1 out of every 50 marketing graders I do are doing blogging the way it should be done, and maybe 1 out of 10 might have an active blog at all. But a lot of times, if it's active, it's maybe they're posting about a festival that's happening, in 3 days from now, or they're putting recipes up that are great content for the site or for social media, but it's not going to attract people to the website, which, as we talked about maybe 3-4 weeks ago in a webinar that I did, was that, obviously you want to have great content, and that's the most important thing, but your blog needs to be a way in which you are getting people to your website in the first place, not just something that people can read once they're already there. So I say all that to say very, very few people are spending any time blogging at all, and if they are, it's probably maybe 30 minutes to an hour, however long it takes to type out some recipe information, post a photo, and do it that way. From a blogging standpoint, you should probably be spending anywhere from 2 to 5 hours a week on that. But again, it kind of depends on how consistently you're doing it. We recommend writing a weekly blog, and we think that that's a great consistent number to strive for, but in that there's a lot that goes into it. It's not merely writing a few sentences or a few paragraphs and getting that online. You need to be writing 500 to 700 words. You need to be doing all the research before you even think about writing. You need to do all the research to find out what you need to be writing about in the first place, like we talked about in the first question today about finding keywords for your blog in Google's keyword planner. You need to then write it. You need to edit it, you need to post it, you need to distribute that content in various ways, whether through email or social media or wherever. So really you should be spending several hours a week on that every single week. And again, that's just not happening by and large, you know, in the industry when you're trying to do it on your own. With social media, I would say that people are spending time here for sure. Maybe not as much as we would recommend, but you can tell people are spending more time with social media than they are with blogging. You know, I tend to see maybe 1 to 2 posts a week on average for most people as we're doing these, again, these marketing graders and these marketing consultations. But even then, it comes down to, okay, you're doing social media, or you're posting things, but are you driving engagement? Is your fan base increasing? Are you getting people to your website as a result of the social media? And oftentimes that's not the case either, as when we dive deeper and look at analytics and see, you know, where they are from a fan count perspective. But again, hours-wise, if you're doing it well, posting 3 to 5 times a week, managing all the comments and user engagement that you get on social media, you can probably get away with maybe 2 hours a week once you know, you're posting and you're monitoring throughout the week. So rough numbers there, and so when you add those two together, you know, we're looking at anywhere between 3 and 7 hours a week, or the equivalent of almost of a work day. So it's a lot of time that needs to be spent in these two areas alone of your marketing picture.
Yeah, it can suck up a lot of time really quick, and that's before you even get to some of the things like keeping up a website and managing email marketing. And oh, did we mention you've got to have time for your guests?
And operating the day-to-day business and managing rates and doing all those things that typically come before, you know, anyone thinks about writing a blog. Yeah,
absolutely. This next question, I wish I had more time to cover, because this could easily be a webinar on its own, but what is the best way to incorporate a brand new restaurant into an existing hotel? This is another loaded question. A lot goes into it. We've got some great case studies on some of our customers that were already customers and did this exact same thing that we helped with. But a few things I would say to consider. One is, who's your target going to be? Are you just really going to focus? Is it a big enough property with enough guests that's what you're going after? You're really going after those guests, and that your business is going to live and thrive off of that. Or do you also want to attract the local market? Are there enough people in your local area that you want to attract them to your restaurant as well? And I would answer that question early on in the process, because that alone is going to impact a lot of what I would encourage you to do from a branding perspective. So to think about that. We helped one of our customers this year or last, well, it was in 2015, not in 2016, rebrand their restaurant, because there was a lot of confusion in their local market that you had to be staying at the inn or the hotel to eat there. So we helped them rebrand. We launched a whole new marketing campaign for it, and their sales in their restaurant have gone up tremendously this year, so much so that they were able to bring on a full-time chef, and the hotelier was able to get out of that role, and really has led to a lot of growth for them, but also a lot more free time that growth has enabled. So lots of ways to answer this question, but if this was your question, I would really encourage you to get in touch with us directly, because we'd love to talk to you more in depth about it and share some more in-depth ideas, but we got to keep things moving here today. Steve, question number 10, you kind of answered in the last one you talked about how many hours. So I'm going to just hit it real quick, but the best frequency and content balance for blogging, again, we recommend a weekly post and posts that are at least 500 to 700 words. So weekly post, at least 500 to 700 words is the ideal recommendation. Now, if you can only do twice a month, that's better than nothing. So hear that, but weekly is really that ideal frequency we have found. I'm going to hit this one pretty quick as well. Question number 11, is Snapchat going to become relevant in the travel industry? A lot of ways and jokes I can make about this question. And my answer to this is I don't believe so, but I don't know. You know, time will tell how relevant it becomes for businesses. You know, I could see definitely some uses of it, especially for last-minute deals and flash sales and things like that. If that's part of your business plan or business model, there's some cool things you can do with Snapchat to be able to do that. But you've got to grow a following in the first place, which can be hard to do for a business on Snapchat. So you just got to have to feel that out, and then also understand, I mean, who's really the target demographic? Who's using Snapchat? And while it's growing, right, I mean, it's younger people adopting it early, and it's growing into some of the older populations. Is it the right target market for you and your business? So short answer is I don't think it is, and it's definitely way down on the list of things that I would encourage a hotelier or someone in the travel industry to be investing into from a marketing perspective. All right, Steven, I'm going to kick this one over to you. What should I include in email marketing? Special rates, package offers, current events, and attractions? What does a great email campaign look like, I guess, to summarize that question?
Yeah, a lot of questions there on what to include, and my answer would be yes, 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 and yes. You definitely want to be including all of these things, but not necessarily every single time you send an email out. We go back to blogging a lot and what we talk about and what we believe in and what we've seen work, and I'm going to go there right now because when you have a blog and when you have, let's say, a weekly blog, you then have a ton of new and fresh content every single week that you need to find a way to get in front of people. Yes, you're trying to get that blog found via organic search, but you can also share it in all these other places like social media, and in this case, email campaigns, right? This is the best place for you to be writing about these current events, writing about the local attractions, writing about anything that travelers might want to do when they come to your area. What we see happen too often is that people are including these current events and attractions in their email campaigns, but within the email campaign, if I click on, you know, let's say the Cooper River Bridge Run happening in Charleston, what, in a week or so? If I click on that, what we see happen most often is that that link will take me to the Cooper River Bridge Run website. That's not what we want to do. We want to have already had a blog about that event 2 months ahead of time. That way when we link in that email campaign, we can link them directly to our site. They can get all the information about the bridge run that they would ever need, and now they have an opportunity to look at our accommodations, to download, you know, maybe a lead generation item that we have on our website, to see our phone number, to see our email addresses. We've done a couple of things there. We've established ourselves as a local expert because they're finding that information on our website and through our emails. And the second thing is we're just exposing them to our brand as opposed to sending them away from our website. So that's kind of the current events and attractions part of it. And we tend to err on the side of let's send out content-rich, current event, attractions, things to do type emails more often than not. So this is a rough guess, but I would say anywhere between the 60 and 70% mark. That's about the percentage of your emails that you want to be very content-rich, with maybe the 30 to 40% of your emails being kind of those special rates, package offers, last-minute deals, last-minute discounts, if that's part of your, again, part of your marketing plan. So you need to feature specials and packages. You need to feature these rates and deals. But if you do that all the time, what we have seen is that you irritate your recipients because you're coming off as being salesy all the time, whereas if you can include the great content emails more often than not, you're just breaking up their day while they sit at work so they can think about the last trip they took to Charleston, to Austin, to San Diego, to Cape Cod, and they can spend 10 minutes, you know, going through your email as opposed to working on the spreadsheet that they were supposed to, you know, get turned in 15 minutes ago. It's a great way to break up their day. People want to read that stuff. You stay top of mind with them, and it's a great way by just giving them that great content to read. And then every so often, you want to then hit them with a, hey, we have a 15% discount to all of our former guests, and we'd love to offer that. But you want to do that sparingly as to not come off as salesy all the time.
Yeah, not come off as salesy and not come off as a couponer. I mean, the worst thing you can do is start getting in the coupon model. That can be a quick death to a business. So yeah, definitely encourage you to not create consistency in that. Awesome. Thanks for that answer, Stephen. Moving on here, number 13, how can I keep emails I send out of the trash can? Should I create a special email address for only email marketing sends? Is there a software company that you prefer? Should I post my email campaigns on social media, or should other content be going there? Oh, wow, that's a lot. That's like the last email marketing webinar we taught all in one right there. So can't answer all of that. I don't think you need to create a special email address for your email marketing sends. The content you're putting in your campaign will or will not help you keep it out of trash. There are certain keywords that get flagged as spam more often than others, so making sure you're not using those words that are part of that spam flag. Unfortunately, my last name is one of those keywords that gets your emails marked as spam, so that's just unfortunate for me. But and your software company should have like a spam checker built into it. The two we typically recommend would be MailChimp and GetResponse. MailChimp for more of the entry-level average Joe user, GetResponse for more of the advanced agency-level user. And then should I post my email campaigns on social media? You can. It doesn't hurt. We don't see a lot of interaction or engagement when people do, so I wouldn't say it's a great strategy, but it doesn't necessarily hurt. But more than anything, I would say, yes, other content should be going there. That shouldn't be, it should maybe be 1% of your social media strategy. So you should have a lot of other content going there. So hopefully that helped. There's a real quick blow through that to get you an answer there. Been getting this question a lot. In regards to HomeAway's new model of charging the customer a service fee, why would they try to fix something that wasn't broken? We have seen nothing but headaches from this, and our guests now are getting a bad taste in their mouths about our business because of HomeAway's change. This we are going to be teaching an entire webinar on here shortly. So come back for that if this is something of interest to you. But it's not that they wanted to fix something that wasn't broken. In my opinion, they wanted to make more money because they knew they had a cash machine with captive customers that had nowhere else to go. And in reality, it comes down to they kind of own your brand a little bit. They own you because you're so reliant on them. They can do whatever they want with their fees, and they believe that in a lot of ways. And we work closely with them. It's not that we're trying to throw them under the bus or anything. I just think when Expedia made that acquisition of them back in December, they said, man, Airbnb is already charging this service fee. If we charge this service fee, what is that going to do for our revenue? If we add a 6% service fee on top of every booking we get, and we increase the amount of bookings that are coming online, which they've told us they're going to be 100% online bookable by the end of the year, the amount of revenue that they will generate as a company is going to grow exponentially, in the sense that, like, go buy their stock, because it is a huge opportunity. If they execute this well and they don't turn away too many people in the process or make too many people mad, this will grow their revenue in a huge way. You won't see it as much because it's going to be rolled up under Expedia now, so we may not have that exact data. But my belief is that this change will be a huge revenue growth for HomeAway without a huge increase in expense. There will be an increase in expense to execute it, but not in proportion to the amount of revenue they're going to get. So that's why. And yes, it's causing headaches for you. Yes, it's causing headaches for your guests. Yes, they have a bad taste in their mouth. The opportunity exists, and that it gives you the chance to say, okay, I've got to get more serious about my branded marketing and keeping my customers coming back to me, as opposed to my customers going back to HomeAway to make their booking year after year after year. So you have absolutely got to have a branded marketing strategy in your business to get them to come back and be able to tell them, book direct and save money. You can book direct and save $499 per booking, which is the maximum service fee that HomeAway charges. So tons of marketing opportunity exists, and that's kind of the silver lining of this whole thing, is that there is opportunity here for all of us as marketers to gain traction. So that's the quick answer. We're going to be going more in depth on that in the webinar in the coming weeks. So keep an eye out for that. How would you measure success from a social media standpoint? Stephen, you want to give us maybe 20 seconds on this?
Yep. One thing we don't see necessarily is that Facebook or whatever is going to drive bookings directly. But what we see, how we would measure that is, are your fans engaging with your posts? Are you growing your fans at about a 5 to 10% clip every single month? We see that as huge success. I think Matt mentioned earlier going from 500 to about 2,000 in the course of a year. I think it's very realistic, and if you're not there, we think you should be. Are you driving traffic to your website from social media? So not just are you building that engagement on Facebook or Twitter or wherever, but are you seeing then people go from that social media source to your website? That's another way. And at the end of the day, we see social media as a great tool to build your brand awareness. We think those three things I just mentioned are a great way and great metrics to use to see, hey, are more people engaging with my brand? Do more people know I exist? And then are more people getting to my website? Those would be maybe three of the things that I would look at to say, yeah, we're being successful on social media.
Awesome. Thanks, Steven. Keeping things moving along, what are some of the new website trends that we should be paying attention to? Any key analytics to make note of? Again, would love to dive really deep into this one, and we probably should. We should probably do a webinar on this, Steven, so let's put this one on the list. But I think, and we talk about this a lot, I mean, we just rolled out a new website framework, which we're really excited about, spent a ton of time and money investing into that, and you can email me if you want to see examples of that. But as we studied that, as we were working towards that, a couple big things: mobile, design mobile first, and then go from there to a desktop design. It's hard to go from desktop down to a small screen, but it's much easier to go from a mobile size design to a larger screen. So mobile first when you're thinking about design, and then take what you're learning from other marketing mediums. So one of the big things we incorporated into our new design was looking at the way some of the companies who were getting real viral growth and what were some of the things that we thought they were doing, and not necessarily their website, but what were some of the things, the behavior they were getting from their customers, and how could we apply that behavior that was becoming commonplace and becoming kind of that viral piece into what we were doing from a design perspective. So some really cool stuff came out of that. Around the way we design and the way we use photos and the way we get people to engage. So lots of cool stuff going on there. You know, I think the way your website converts is going to be more and more important. We're seeing a lot of indicators on the search engine optimization and analysis that we're doing for our customers that conversion rate is becoming an increasingly important factor in ranking algorithms. So Google knows how well your website is performing from a data perspective, not just how well it's stacked up to have the right keywords stuffed into it, but how well it actually performs from a conversion perspective, and they're giving preference to sites that perform better on conversion. You can go real far down that rabbit hole, but you've got to be thinking about conversion on your site and getting a guest to take a defined next step as you think about that. So the way we use photos, the way we design for mobile, the mobile booking engine piece of that, because we're seeing huge growth in mobile bookings happening. Not as much growth as we're seeing in traffic, but we are seeing growth in mobile bookings happening. And then that last piece of conversion, and really studying how to make your website convert better would be some key trends to look at. But lots going on there. I think we got one more here before we dive into some questions from the audience. What is a realistic open rate goal for email marketing? Steven, you want to hit on this one?
Yeah, I can be quick here, and pretty straightforward answers, really. Again, I referenced MailChimp. They compile a study, and they update it every single month. And so we're able to see what the travel and transportation industry see as an average, and we get the new numbers every month. So I can tell you, as of March 1st, the average open rate, according to MailChimp's data, for the travel and transportation industry is 20.7%. And the average click-through rate is 2.31%. I would argue, though, that the type of people that we have in our lists are more familiar with who we are, because we run more personal businesses by and large. Because this travel industry, this transportation industry, it includes big conglomerates like Expedia, TripAdvisor, Delta, any of the airlines and things like that. So much more impersonal. So with your personal list, I would say that if you're not seeing at least a 30% open rate for your list, that you're probably missing the mark, and that's, you know, we see about a 30 to 35% open rate on average across our customer base. And then from a click-through standpoint, I would say that if you're not in the 4 to 5% click-through range, that you're probably, missing the boat a little bit as well. So again, you can go off of these industry averages at 20.7 open rate and 2.31 click-through rate. But you have to remember that there's these big companies out there that probably are driving those percentages down. For you, 30% or above open rate, 4 to 5% click-through rate, and I think you're in pretty good shape. And one note on this, because I see this get confused a lot, click-through rate is measured, and you should be measuring it as clicks divided by your total list. What we see happen a lot is that people they'll tell me, yeah, well, I got a 15% click-through rate last time, and I immediately scratched my head, and it's because most people, or a lot of people, are measuring this clicks divided by the number of people who opened my email in the first place, and that's a totally different metric. So we don't have the number on that today, but for total click-through rate, it is total clicks divided by the entire size of your database. So there you have it.
That's a great point. You got to be looking at the right metrics to really make sure you're measuring the same thing. Awesome. Well, that was the last question we had slated. I'm going to give you all a few minutes to drop some things in the chat panel, or maybe 30 seconds here. So if you have a question, drop that in the chat panel. While you're doing that, I want to run over this with you. If we maybe just scratched the surface on your question today, or we said something that created even more questions for you, a great next step for you would be to request a 30-minute consultation. It's something we do absolutely free. In some capacity, almost after every webinar we do, to just try to help you, the industry, and get you connected with somebody on our team that can answer some questions for you, bounce some things off of them, get some marketing strategies together that will really help you grow your business. So again, totally free, just something we do to try to help you all take the next steps, because we invest a lot into these webinars, and we want you to take it, learn it, apply it. And if you don't apply it, then you're not any further along than when you started. So it's just something we do as a commitment to helping you all take some next steps. So definitely take advantage of that. We will be sending an email out afterwards where you can submit a form to request that 30-minute consultation. And again, no charge for doing that. So take advantage of that opportunity and some free time from us. All right, so let's jump in the chat panel here, see what questions we have. All right, let's start with this one here from Frank. How do you know what Facebook post to boost or not? Great question, Frank. Steven, you want to take that one, or you want me to take that one?
Yeah, I can take it real quick. What I tend to tell people is that, and I think this is a wide statement that can apply to every part of your marketing, but just like with pay-per-click and are you seeing a return on investment there, I would say that you should only boost posts on Facebook if there is a realistic opportunity that you're going to see a return. So if it's just kind of a great photo, but there's no link back to your website, then I'm not going to boost that, even though it might be very popular and you might get some fans out of it. There's a small chance that's going to turn into a booking. Where we tend to use those types of dollars, if we're going to boost a Facebook post, would be first criteria: is that post going to get people back to our website in some capacity? So maybe through a blog, or probably even more importantly, is it linking them to maybe a special or a package, or especially the packages where we are, have these entire vacations planned for people. We'll say a 2-night stay, a $50 voucher to a restaurant, and a bottle of champagne upon check-in. Let's say around Valentine's Day. That would be something we can see boosting. Another time would be later in the year, or even now, but really later in the year around Thanksgiving, Cyber Monday, Black Friday, all that stuff, when you're looking to push gift certificate sales. So long answer to say I would only boost if you think you can see a return on investment from those boosting dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly where I was going to go with that ROI piece. All right, just one more question here. That's all we got time for. It's 2:59. Can you recommend a strategy for forming the following types of partnerships? Chamber of Commerce, taxis, Uber, Lyft, hospitals, other hotels, vacation rental property managers, so really just strategic partnerships in general. And yes, there's a lot of strategies you can do to develop these type of partnerships. One, and the best, is just rubbing elbows with these people. Go to the events that they're at, introduce yourself, get to know them, try to add value to them before you ask them to add value to you, and that law of reciprocation will kick in. If you do something for them, they'll want to do something for you. So definitely that, adding value to them, looking for ways you can help them, looking for ways that you can kind of scratch their back too, even if it's from a monetary perspective or whatever. You know, if a taxi driver picks up a business professional at the airport and he says, hey, I just need a hotel to stay in tonight, where do you recommend? You know, it's really hard to build relationships with one taxi driver at a time, but if you could develop a relationship with their company or whatever else, and being able to say, hey, every time you guys drop somebody off, we'll give you a $10 kickback or whatever. And just developing those types of relationships. It doesn't have to be kickbacks either. I mean, you can just do things for people, like offering them a free night stay on a midweek when you'd be slow anyway, so it doesn't hardly cost anything. Or just looking for those ways to build relationships and add value to other people. Hosting happy hours or cocktail receptions or whatever else, and inviting local businesses over so they see your business, they see your office, they see your property, they see your inn, they see your hotel, whatever that is. Just getting people through your doors is going to be a good way to develop those types of relationships. So that, you can always the wine and dine strategy or the kickback strategy, or just the simple rubbing elbows and building relationships. You can't beat that old style boots on the ground marketing to really develop those partnerships. And then asking, just having a plan in place to be able to do that and follow up with those people. So hopefully that was helpful, and it was about a 2-minute answer to a really long question. But hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully everything we shared with you all was helpful today. Definitely do, if you've got more questions or you'd love to dive deeper on something we talked about, request that free 30-minute marketing consultation. We will be happy to connect with you one-on-one and answer your questions more in depth. Otherwise, stay tuned. We will have some more webinars coming up in the coming weeks. We will also be traveling a lot in the month of April. So Stephen will be at a conference, a vacation rental conference out west. I will be at an innkeeping and hoteliers conference in Nashville. So we'd love to meet both of you at either of those conferences if you'll be at one or the other. So come, say hi, drop us an email, let us know where you'll be, or we'd love to connect on the phone and just get to know you a little bit and what's going on. So do reach out if there's anything we can do to help you. Thanks, everybody, for your time and attention. We will get the recording out shortly, probably early next week, and look forward to talking to you all soon. Have a great rest of your day.